Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. I would like to welcome Matt Battaglia. Matt is an entrepreneur and he's the host of a radio show called the Business Roundtable. I'm very excited to hear what he has to share with us today and kind of pick his brain about business in general and especially helping startups. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me, Allan. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your background. What brought you to kind of the business world? What motivated you to start, your own business, and also kind of get into a radio show where you guys talk about entrepreneurs and business owners?
So I grew up in an entrepreneur family. My father hadn't been paid by anybody probably since the early 70s, maybe the late 60s. Lectured me and my brother constantly about you want to write your own paycheck, talked about freedom, the setup of owning a business, building your own value. He owned a vending business in the New York area. I worked in the vending business partially in high school and then partially in college. So I got a real world MBA just learning about cash flow and how to run a business and logistics, because it was a logistical nightmare at times, just running a vending business, fixing and moving machines and stuff like that. Then I went to college for business courses, actually got a major in history also. So big fan of history, big fan of studying and reading, and always have had a passion for it. Post-college, my father actually sold the vending business. So I wound up going into radio, which was like the next family business. So I don't currently own radio. I'm not involved on that end anymore, but for a while, my family did own radio stations. So and we sold out a few years ago, bad partnership, and we could circle back to that. So I plenty of stories about partnerships and dealing with lawyers and the legal ramifications when you don't do it right from the onset. But so I've owned radio stations, I've worked in media, and I've also run a media company, very small agency, ad agency. So I've seen that end of the business and approaching other radio stations. And I've also worked in financial services on the PR part, as well as actually on the sales. So I've worked in a few different industries. I have a unique perspective. And now I do a radio show really profiling businesses. And what I try and do is I try to find where is the business going. I've learned the hard way when you're in industries that are on the downturn, specifically being in the vending business and then being in radio. I've seen businesses that are kind of going this way, and you have to be careful. You have to watch the trends and be aware of the direction and the momentum and the cycle that your business is in. So I've tried to work with other business owners and profile businesses that are either pivoting. So they're sort of seeing like their business 2.0, how technology affects what they do, or like you're trying to do startups, what's going on with an industry. Interviewed a lot of people in cannabis, AI, different type of tech startups. So that's what we try to do with the radio show. And hopefully people get a few lessons along the lines from the people in the industries.
Yeah. So when somebody's thinking about, I talk to people that they're entrepreneurs at heart, which I believe I'm considered one of those people where, I believe, for professional reasons, I was put on this planet to start businesses. I am borderline addicted to it. It's what I do for a hobby. That's what I do in my spare time, because I love it. I love creating things. But I have people that approach me and they're kind of that nature, and they don't have like necessarily a specific industry. A lot of times they'll come to me and they'll have a bunch of different business ideas. You have an extensive business background. Some people I talk to, they'll say, I've been in home services for 30 years, right? You have all these different industries. Tell somebody that is wanting to start a business, but they don't know what industry to go into.
Well, I would say for starters, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's nothing wrong with being a specialist and knowing your circle of competence. This is what I'm good at, so I'm going to go to business in this. What I would say is, as far as finding your passion, you have to be able to balance that with, i.e., is this a viable business? So you can't say my passion is in Sanskrit writing and translating books, and then everybody looks at you, because you can't go to a bank and get a loan on that. And so you have to understand how do banks operate, what will they lend on, what will people invest in, and obviously you want to know your own circle of competence. Now, if you don't know and you're not sure what you're passionate about, I would say then you got to be a reader or watch YouTube or whatever the case may be, and find businesses that interest you. Get in touch with people that sell franchises. They've got hundreds of businesses to choose from, so they might be able to give you some options. Or, do what you're doing. Actually interview people, go out, hit the ground, and see what other people do, and actually see, hey, does this work with my talents? What most people don't realize is, if I'm a good accountant, that doesn't mean I can run an accounting firm. But ironically, someone could not know nothing about accounting, but be great at running an accounting
100%.
firm. So you have to understand that if you're good at a business and then you go run a business, you're not the top guy anymore. You're not the top accountant. You now have to think of yourself as, the coach, CEO, manager of the organization. That's a mindset shift that not everybody is capable of doing.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard for people that are good at something to let go of that control, right? Michael Gerber talks about it in the E-Myth. He talks about people kind of getting into industries that they have some technical skill, and then they run into this host of problems, right? It's funny because I specifically pick industries to invest and start businesses in that I know nothing about, right? And that has helped me, right? I was a practicing attorney. My first, besides real estate investing, my first business was a pest control company. And so it was really easy for me to continue to replace myself. And I think entrepreneurs, there's two big issues here. One, they like the technical aspects of whatever work they're getting into, right? They feel like they're skilled at it. They enjoy doing the technical work versus growing a company. And two, they have a tough time letting go of some of that control when they're really good at it. So how does an entrepreneur, I'm thinking of somebody, they're sitting at home, they have these ideas about what they might do to start a business, and it feels like they want to do something they're good at, but they don't want to do something that they're too good at. I don't know. I'm kind of confused here.
Well, I think it's a very valid point, because so example, you're an architect and you're a good architect and you get the skill and you love the craft, but running an architecture firm, you're now the GM of the company. You have to oversee other architects. And quite frankly, they could be a lot worse than you, but you're able to sell their work. The clients like them. It's a mindset shift. So maybe the first order of business is, where is your mind at? So you talked about Gerber's E-Myth book. That is a very good example of a book that, I would recommend a dozen business books, but that would be on the list. Go read the book and understand the mindset first. Gerber uses constantly Ray Kroc as an example.
Yeah.
So Ray Kroc is a milkshake salesman, and then he goes into the restaurant business. He didn't know anything about the restaurant business, but he started his own franchise. And like you, he learned on the fly. Now, the reality was he didn't even understand what business he was in, because he was really in the real estate business. But he had to learn trial by error, so on and so forth. And he has to understand, where's the cash flow of the business. So any business you get into, it doesn't matter if it's an architecture firm or it's McDonald's or it's pest control or radio. Where's the cash flow? Who's buying into the business? Who are you selling to? And quite frankly, deep level, how do you serve their needs? The pest control business has nothing to do with bugs. It has everything to do with, I don't want my wife screaming on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock because some bug went across the floor. It's all about fear and people feeling comfortable.
Exactly.
So, people come to the radio station and they want to run an ad. And sometimes they bring this ad copy and it's spectacular. You can tell they really know the psychology of their clients. other people bring in this ad copy and they want to talk about the history of their business and all sorts of other things. Nobody cares, so
Yeah.
you have to understand what business you're in. So going back to your question, entrepreneur is really a mindset. And if people want to own a business, they have to understand that I'm no longer the quarterback. I'm now going to the sidelines. Can I watch other people play, critique them, but not too hard? Can I motivate and critique? Can I teach? Am I a teacher, basically?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, can I replace myself?
Yeah.
That's the goal of every entrepreneur.
That's a great point, because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, they can be type A, kind of outgoing individuals, personality types, and it's tough for us to naturally hand the ball off, right?
Yes.
And just
Yes.
kind of remove ourselves to more of a managerial or a coaching position and allow them to do it. Because, man, especially when you start a business, it's much easier just to do it yourself.
Of course.
Right.
You're the best secretary in your business. It's ridiculous, but I've done it. You're at the front desk doing this. You're doing the books. You're doing it. It's ridiculous because you're a perfectionist, type A. Totally get it. Hey, maybe you need to see a therapist first. Maybe you start by seeing a therapist, work on your issues, then read Michael Gerber's book. But on a serious note, I think there's truth when you hear, I'm in my late 40s, but when I was younger and I'd hear some person talking about, I got to do my Zen, I need to hike every morning, I got to get myself in the mindset. I thought that was a load of nonsense. Now I get it.
Yes.
Now I totally get, like, you have to have your mind clear. You have to be focused on whatever the hell you're doing. But again, trying to answer your question, it is a hard one to answer. And I think it's being honest with yourself. Yeah. What's the thing? Gary Vee always says it. You got to have like self-awareness. I'm a big believer in self-awareness long before I even heard him talking about it, that you have to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and can you get out of the way? Like, do you have enough ego to start a business, but then have enough ego to say, hey, like you said, even leading into this, hey, that manager is better than me.
Absolutely.
Can I get out of the
way? And be okay with it, right? It's not just like, admitting it and, not allowing things to happen that need to happen, but you have to be okay with that. Hey, I am purposefully looking for somebody to replace myself that is better than me. And so kind of going back to where this question started, if somebody that's listening right now, they're like, man, I don't know what industry to go into. I have like several different ideas, 5-6 different business ideas, which all entrepreneurs have. They're driving to the gym and they're like, hey, there needs to be some better type of construction cone, right? It's
right.
A little bit just thoughts going everywhere. And so maybe they use this process a little bit. Hey, what is an industry? And I use this exercise when I'm talking to people. What is an industry that in 5 years I can see myself owning a business and not being involved in, right? And allowing other people to just do their thing. And so it's tough because a lot of people, Gary Vee included, they say, follow your passion. Hey, I'm really big into collecting Jordan's shoes, right? Jordan shoes, like love them. It would be tough for me to be involved in a business that involves shoes because I enjoy doing that, right? I enjoy buying them and, trying to find a good deal. And so I think there's this gray area where we're telling people, hey, follow your passion, do something that you're good at, but don't cross the line into taking control of the technical aspects day to day. Now, but there is something to be said, Matt, is there not, about people that they're like, look, I'm going to start a window washing company. I'm going to wash the windows. I'm going to do 200 grand a year in revenue. I'm going to wash the windows. I'm going to send the invoices. Is there anything wrong with that? Somebody just kind of doing their own thing?
I don't think there's anything wrong with any of this. I think, again, if you know yourself and you enjoy washing the windows and you enjoy, covering the bills or whatever the case may be, then all the power to you. Look, the average income of a family is 50 or 60 grand. If you're pulling down 200K and you're washing windows and you're whistling and you're, what's the Buffett thing? You're whistling to work.
Yeah,
Hey,
well,
man, that's all the power to you. What I would say, the biggest thing is self-awareness. Understand, are you going to be happy when you're the guy washing the windows? Are you going to be happy if it turns out like you've done, you started a business and replaced yourself? Are you okay with that? And I'll take it a step further. Here's the way I would tackle the passion part. I would argue more, have conviction in the company you're into. Conviction is more important than passion. And I'll tell you the difference. You being into Jordan sneakers, that's passion. But that doesn't mean you would have conviction in running a business based on Jordan sneakers. Okay. I have a passion for watching Batman movies. I do not think I could turn that into a business. But I'll tell you something, I still have my comic books in my home office, and every once in a while I have a little nostalgia fest and thumb through them for 5 minutes. But I'm no way in hell am I going to go run a comic book store. I think it's totally ludicrous. So there's a difference between what I'm passionate about as well as, what I have conviction in. I look, I'm not a cannabis guy. I don't smoke. I don't hang out at the stores, but I'll tell you what, I have conviction in that business. And if somebody came to me and said, do you want to invest in it? And I have some people who have approached me recently. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'll tell you one thing, I do believe in the business. Now I've also studied it. I've interviewed people, and I'm a deep dive guy. So like, I have trouble doing anything casually. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I got a family. I like sports, but I only have time to watch football. But I'm a deep dive guy. I love watching, these player profiles, and I love playbook stuff. So I get way into it when I'm into it. So that's kind of how I would look at it. That, do you have conviction in your idea? You ever interview some of these guys lately? They're into blockchain. These guys are going to die on blockchain. They are into it. They will take you to that. I've interviewed guys. They talk about blockchain, and they're like, "Look, remember when you got JavaScript and you had to code and know what JavaScript is? But now all the websites, it's HTML. You can just build a website." They said eventually everything's going to be blockchain. It's going to be much better coded. It's going to be much stronger. It's going to be much secure, and you're not even going to know the difference. Just like you don't think about how Windows operates or how iOS in your Apple phone operates or any of that type of stuff. But that's conviction. You can see it when they talk about it, So I would say that's more important than just passion, because hell, we could have passion for watching basketball. That doesn't make me Kevin Durant.
Yeah, exactly. So how does somebody that's wanting to start a business in a particular industry know if they're going to have conviction with a certain business idea before they do it? Or is conviction something that you can develop? And even further,
I think you can develop it.
Does conviction come from, hey, it comes from the industry, or it comes from my company, right? Because if it comes from my company and it's like, hey, this industry, I used to be an attorney. Attorneys don't have the best reputation, right? So maybe I'm going to go start a law firm, and I'm going to show people what a good law firm is, a good, honest, clear, open law firm is. Is that kind of the thought process?
Definitely.
As somebody's going through that?
That's an excellent example, because I agree with you. It's not just about a company. Yahoo is an internet company. Do you want to work at Yahoo, or do you want to work at Microsoft? But they're both in the same industry. They're both in the internet. They're both in advertising. They're both in search. But one, quite frankly, you'd probably rather be at Google than any of them. But the point being is, yes, I agree. It's about company. It's about culture. It's about conviction in It's definitely in yourself, it's in your idea, it's in your industry, and it's in your company. So taking it back to the beginning, how do you find conviction? It's a confidence thing. Somebody could be a great architect, just using that example again. So they're George Costanza and they're the great architect that he always
Yeah.
wanted to be.
Yeah.
So they're an architect. The point being of the joke is that when he claimed to be an architect, the character would be confident. He'd be standing up straighter. There was something to it. There was conviction in the belief in his ridiculous lie. And he even joked about that in some of the Seinfeld episodes. The point I'm trying to make is basically, you could be a good architect. You have conviction in your day-to-day job. Now, again, now you have to then determine, do I want to run an architecture firm? Because like you used the example, I'm a lawyer, but I believe we can do this better. And that's what my radio show is all about. How do we find the guy who wants to be lawyer 2.0, who's basically saying, you know what, I'm going to practice law online. I'm going to have all sorts of courses. I'm going to charge you $200. You get to be in my membership on a monthly basis. And we've got 100 videos that answers all of the standard business questions that people have. And then if you need a consulting call, it's going to cost you $200 a call. And then if you got to retain us, that's a whole different conversation. Now you're going to retain us. But if you need basic stuff, I'm not going to bill you rampant because you want to start an S Corp. You know?
Yeah. No, that I think that's a good point. And as somebody is kind of deciding, hey, I have these different business ideas. When you're talking about conviction, that conviction might actually give you a market advantage, right? Going back to,
Sure,
the law firm. Like, hey, we're going to create a law firm where everything is disclosed. We're very upfront about our fees, whatever. That's not traditionally done. And so at the same time, while they're on one hand trying to decide what industry business model to follow, on the other, they're looking, which they need to be doing anyway. Don't you recommend that they kind of go through this process early on and kind of analyze what they're going to do different in the marketplace to distinguish themselves?
I think that's a total bullseye. So right out of the gate, you have to understand business. So you got to read Gerber's book. You got to understand a business plan. Why do they make you write a business plan to go to the bank and get a loan and fill out a personal financial statement? You need to do these things before you even start a business. Why? Because you need a snapshot of where you're at. So when you write a business plan, you now stress test. And I like the word stress test better than I like the SWOT analysis. SWOT gets to be too wonky with consulting terms and that, now we're all at, Bain and Company, but taking it down to earth, you got to stress test it. If we're going to start a law firm and we're going to disclose our fees right out of the gate, we then have to do a market test. We got to go and we got to talk to all our friends who own a business, who retain lawyers, and say, hey, what do you think about your lawyer? And then after you hear from 7, 8, 18 people, and they just keep saying the same thing over and over, well, my lawyer's okay, but I hate it when I get his bill. It's a lot of nonsense. I don't know what I'm going to get. And now I'll give you another book everybody should read. You read Story Brand by Don Miller. And basically in that book, he talks about how to set up a website. Imagine going to a lawyer's website and right at the top of the website, it says, our fees are X.
Yes.
That's the start of the website. We disclose everything. Click here to read our fees in big, bold, 18 font,
Yes.
point, big, bold. Let's get it right out there, or a financial advisor or something who told you, I have a very good friend who's a financial advisor. He's got like all over his website and his initial pitch to people. Hey, if I suck, fire me.
Yeah.
Like that's what he talks about. Like
I love
blatantly.
it.
Look, we're easy to hire, we're easy to fire. If you had a lawyer who was putting that out,
Yeah.
he now, that's a shot over the bow. Gerber would love that. He's serving notice to the other people. Look, we do things differently and we put our money where our mouth is.
Well, and I think that people that are trying to hone in on a business idea, they can kind of use that information, that line of thinking, and just kind of contemplate, hey, what are the things that frustrate me? What is something that
That's an
I
excellent point.
butt my head against every single day or every single week that there doesn't seem to be a solution? Because at the end of the day, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to solve a problem that other people aren't solving, or solve it in a way that they're not solving it, right? And so
Yes.
for my entrepreneur friends that are listening to this, that are trying to hone in on a business idea, solve a problem that you're facing. Because if you're willing to pay money to somebody that can solve this problem, other people are too. And then that also solves your marketing situation, right? Like, you're
Yes.
distinguishing yourself in the marketplace, and then you're just going to keep hitting that over and over and over and over. Fire me, fire me, fire me, fire me, right? If you're not satisfied, whatever your niche is, whatever the problem is. And I'm actually reading that book by Don Miller right now, and he talks about CarMax in that book a lot. He talks about how people, and the growth that CarMax has experienced over the last several years is crazy, right? In resale of vehicles. And he talks about how people got sick of going to a used car lot and haggling with the car salesman.
Well, people hate that. You can disrupt any business if you can hit a pain point that people hate doing. So if
Yep.
people hate surprises, going to our attorney example, you can niche down and make it all about billing, because business owners hate surprises. They got to predict where their revenue is. They got to predict their expenses. And they got to know, if I got to give a quick call to a lawyer, I'm okay with spending $100 or $200. I expect that. I don't think their time is free. But on the other side of it, I don't want to be billed $1,000 because we had an hour and 15-minute conversation.
Right.
So it's that ebb and flow. But you bring up a couple of very good points. One, you have to understand what the problems are in any industry.
Right.
And that's a way that you stress test whether now you've got something. And then it's got to be burrowing in your head. It's almost like Inception. You can't now get the idea out of your head because you feel like you just struck gold. People do not like lawyers who don't disclose their fees. It's an aha moment. I think now we're on to something, and
Right.
we've niched into an industry. Now you can then decide, do I want to take it a step further? Do I want to be the lawyer only for dentists and some of that stuff? Now, I think some of that stuff is a little overrated. And I think it really depends, because it's like, how well do you really know the dentist, and so on and so forth. So I think that
Right.
gets into areas that I think you have to be a little bit careful with. But to your point, if you understand the pain points of what your clientele is going through, if you've solved your own problems and you're relatable. So basically, if you're a lawyer who's gotten gypped by other lawyers, you got the chip on your shoulder. You're now
Right.
Tom Brady of lawyers. You have this chip on your shoulder. Nothing's ever going to settle it. So you're going to solve your problem. And then you realize, by solving your problem, hey, there are other people out there who have this problem. And that's the connection. That's real sales. Sales is not, I got some snappy line or I do a good PowerPoint and all of a sudden it's magic and everybody's amazed. It's really the connection of saying, hey, this guy understands what I'm going through. This lady has been through it and she knows how to solve it. When I call her, there's no nonsense. We know what it's going to cost. She gets right to the point. She understands my industry, and that's the thing. Any good advisor, any good contact, you use the example you're talking about, you're in real estate, you've been in pest control and other stuff. Imagine, like, you call up the pest control guy and he pulls up in a Honda Civic and he gets out with like this little bag and you're like, get out of here, guy. Like, you got to pull up in the truck, know your industry, understand my problem, make me feel good before you even get to the front door.
I think that kind of goes back to your point about conviction, right? When you have that conviction in your business, this comes naturally. You're naturally able to kind of understand what your customer is wanting and what they're thinking, which is a very powerful tool, right? Understanding that when you're solving a problem, man, it's personal for your customer. And you know what that feels like, because that used to be a problem for you. And so when you
Yes.
start with, as you recommended, that place of conviction over passion, you have answers to these questions that you're going to need down the road anyway.
It's almost like it has to be obvious to you, even though when you're talking to other people, it might not be obvious. So the analogy would be like, there's a nail, it's slightly sticking out of the wall. You know, if I take a hammer and I hit it, that sucker's going in. So now obviously a business and explaining a business and a sales pitch is a lot more complicated than that. And going to the blockchain. So let's take a complicated example. They're explaining blockchain to you. It's a lot of code. It's encrypted. I'm trying to read a book on blockchain right now, and my head hurts. I'm not a science guy, you know, but you give me an investment book, I could tear through it. I can read tax code, anything with money and numbers I get into. But I'm reading the blockchain book, and quite frankly, it's a slog. My point being, though, is if you're a blockchain person, you want to explain to people, look, your software is not as secure as you think. Blockchain is the next level. It's like us putting a double bolt on your software code. Would you rather have a door with a single bolt or just a handle lock, or do you want the old double bolt? Once we get the blockchain in and it's a double bolt, and I'm going to take it a step further, every bolt is labeled. So now we can see the movement of everything. We know where the code goes. That's what blockchain is. Now, I'm sure if a blockchain person listens to this interview, they'll say that is the worst explanation I have ever heard of blockchain. But the thing is, you have to take it to analogies so then people can relate. Oh, you know what? I do want more secure software. I do want my stuff encrypted. I do go to bed at night worried that someone's going to hack my Wells Fargo account again.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that if we have this conviction in our business model, our business idea, the industry that we're going into, we're able to relate with our customers on that level where we're communicating with our customers in the way that they need us to communicate with them. A lot of times people, especially highly specialized technicians, they miss that, right? The other day, maybe a couple months ago, one of my rental properties was getting the carpet cleaned, and there was an issue with the carpet, and the guy cleaning the carpet started telling me about carpet fibers and the history of carpet fibers. And I was like, is my carpet clean or is it not clean? Right? That's all I wanted to know. And so if you have conviction in what you're doing, you're able to use the bolt analogy, right? Locking the door with a bolt, right? And you're able to communicate with your customers on their level, right? You may be all nerded out about the crypto or about whatever tech you're in, but your customer, they don't care. Every once in a while, you get somebody that kind of understands it a bit, but then if you kind of talk over their head, then it gets awkward. Talk to the customers as they need you to talk to them, and as you're kind of contemplating what business should I go into, what is an industry, one, that you have conviction in? What is an industry that you could see yourself kind of resonating on the customer's level and connecting with them? Because, hey, I have that issue, right? My wife, if she is terrified of moths, terrified. One time she screamed so loud, I thought there were like she was looking the opposite direction I was looking. She screamed so loud, I was terrified to turn around. I thought something happened, like my kid walked out with a bloody face or something. It was terrible, like the thought process. And it was a moth. And so I get it, right? Pest control resonates with me because I understand somebody that is just terrified of having insects in their house. And so as the entrepreneur is looking for an industry, it's not always the sexiest, right? A lot of times people chase money. Oh, I'm going to get into crypto, or I'm going to, develop this website, which, that's fine. People do fine in those areas. But, it doesn't have to be the sexiest idea for it to work if you have that conviction.
Well, two points to what you just said, because I think it's very strong. My first point is the pest control business is very simple. I got little kids. I don't want a bug walking across the kitchen floor and the kid steps on it. Second thing, I got pets. So when you spray the stuff around the house, I don't want it to affect my pets.
Yeah.
That's start. I would advise all pest control people, start there in your
Yes.
marketing, and everything else will take care of itself. Oh, and you'll get rid of the problem. And if you don't get rid of the problem, give me a guarantee that you'll come back in 2 weeks and you'll shoot it again, because maybe the problem was heavier than we thought. That's all you need. The other point, though, that you were just making about people get caught up with, I'm going to start a business, and then they think they're the next Amazon. And that's why so many people get sold on some crummy YouTube video where they're like, the ad comes up and they go, you could be a wholesaler and you could run this whole business or multi-level marketing or some other thing. And I'm not opposed, by the way, to any of these businesses, but I would say two things. One, they're still businesses. So if you don't have conviction and you don't understand the nuts and bolts of the business, doesn't matter if you're drop shipping, MLM, whatever, you're done.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is basically that as far as all of these businesses go, people are always looking for sex appeal. That's why they buy the Amazon drop shipping thing. Absolutely. Why can't you just own a storage facility and just collect rent every month? Why can't you run a pest control? People, look, the dentist is not a sexy business, but if you go to my dentist, let me tell you, that guy's killing it because he runs a great practice. He's got the teeth whitening going on. He's got the orthodontics. They ship you from one room to another. They constantly try to upsell you. They make sure you never miss your appointments, so on. So they give a family discount. They give you 25 or 50 bucks if you refer somebody. They're just tight. It's not a sexy business. Nobody likes getting their teeth cleaned. Okay, even if it feels good afterwards, the process is not fun. It's still somebody's hand in your mouth, which kind of creeps me out a little. That being said, it makes money. So I think when you're looking at businesses, you have to have the conviction to know, like, hey, if we clean people's teeth, we'll get paid for it. And that might even be the lost leader. So this is another point about, like, you have to read business books and you have to understand to attract clients, the old McDonald's dollar menu. They don't make money if you go in and you buy a Big Mac for $1. They lose probably 40 cents or something on that deal. But if you buy the Coke for the $1, they just made 91 cents, so you have to understand the economics and the finance aspects of your business. I'm amazed constantly when I talk with people who say they want to run a business. And one, they never heard the term business plan. And two, they don't understand anything about finance. I'm not saying you got to be a whiz and know how to read a P&L and know it all perfectly, but you either have to have a good advisor who does, who then can tell you, like, hey, by the way, this business, it's great you want to buy a storage facility, but they're losing money and you're going to have to throw in a whole ton of money to repair half the units. So you got to understand the economics of the business and know what those words mean, or at least have a partner. You know how you always see these businesses, one person is the salesperson. So like you got a guy and a girl running a business. The lady's the salesperson. The guy is the back office nuts and bolts guy. And then they have to agree on things because they know the strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So the other thing we can say is maybe you should look into partners or having advisors who can tell you either your business stinks or, look, I've reviewed the numbers. And if you don't get your cost per customer up or something, the math on this business is going to swallow you in a year.
100%. Well, Matt, you've given us some great things to think about when going through this process of deciding which industry, which business idea to pursue. Where can people find out a little bit more about all the good things that you're doing?
So they can just simply look up the Business Roundtable with Matt Battaglia, or it's BRT on Libsyn, excuse me. I always spell that wrong. But you can just check out the podcast, and then the podcast has all of the links on basically the website, best of, everything like that. I also have another website called economicnight.com. has some of the stuff you're looking for, some business advice. Now that site is more of a financial consulting site, which is
Mm-hmm.
what I do on the side, and there's some clients I work with. But there's a BRT tab in there too for the podcast. But if people just search Business Roundtable with Matt Battaglia right in Google, the Libsyn site comes up, and then you can, and you can listen wherever the hell you want to listen: Spotify, Google, Amazon, Apple, and I believe I gave your producer the link, so you can also put
Awesome.
that.
Yeah, we'll
in
make
the
sure to.
description.
Awesome. We'll
So
make sure to link to that. So, well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt, and thanks for helping the entrepreneurs that are listening, take the next step and get to the next level.
it's all research. I guess that's just the best way I can say it. It's mindset and kind of starting there, and then reading books like Michael Gerber or Story Brand or Buffett, Making of American Capitalists. That's a book I would recommend every investor, business, entrepreneur, you name it. Everybody should read that book. There's so much that you could learn from it.
Love it. Thanks so much, Matt.
Hope to see you soon on my show.
All righty.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.